All right, Rob, we spoke with Vinny Goodwill of Yahoo Sports, NBA writer, about we're done with the 90s memes that are going around and trending. And he spoke with Shaq, and we mentioned that with him. He said Shaq kind of took it lightheartedly. But let's hear the sound of what Shaq says, and then we can talk about it.
It's cute, but it's natural. Now, let me tell you about it's natural. They always compare me to Wilt Chamberlain. I'm looking at his 70s highlights like, I would have killed this guy. So it's just, normal stuff. Like the stuff that we see in 2024 is way more advanced than the stuff we see in the 90s. So if you're a guy, especially on social media, and all you see is the 2024, 2024, 2024, and then you see 1990, you're definitely not going to be impressed by the 1990. But when I came in 1990, I wasn't impressed by Bill Russell, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, or Wilt Chamberlain footage. They only had one or two moves. Nobody was banging them under the rim, and nobody acted like they wanted to fight them. So for me, being doing exactly what this generation is doing, I'd say the same thing about the 60s, the 70s, and the 80s. So it's cute. I understand it, but it's life. It's just a phase, phase of what we go through. And they actually, make some good points because, like, I don't really have a lot of 90s memories now. All my memories are like Steph Curry and Ann Edwards, what these guys are doing now. So
interesting perspective from Shaq, Rob. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I hear Shaq, and I think that's part of what he's saying is right. But there's also the element of trying to tear down and disrespect the past. I just have a problem with that. And Chris, I don't know what it is about. I think Vinny's right. It happens a lot more in basketball than I can remember. I'm trying to think of, like, maybe I don't know. We've talked about this before about the quarterbacking in the NFL and the difference in the numbers because of the way the game was. Because we've talked about that, but I don't know if I remember people like totally disrespecting quarterbacks. Like the way they're doing players in the NBA, it's kind of weird to me. We know that there's a difference, Chris, in how baseball players played, and you know what I mean, and whatnot. But are people tearing down some of the all-time greats? No.
Well, I will say this about baseball. I think of the three major sports, Rob, that is the one where the players of yesteryear, now they're not as big, you know what I mean?
Right,
but it's probably the nature of the sport because it's obviously athletic, but it just that what we think of as athleticism, size, strength, speed, jumping ability, that's not as much on display in baseball. And so I think when you look back at the old days, so to speak, the 70s, 80s, 90s, in baseball, you just notice they're smaller, but, you can't say they're not as skilled or anything like that.
Right, you're not trashing Ricky Henderson. You know what I mean? Or right, like, or players of that ilk, or I agree. But it seems like this is a thing in basketball. But I do think it's orchestrated. I do think a lot of it is, and there's two things going on here. There are some people, Chris, out there, in order to be relevant, they need LeBron James to be that guy because they didn't see Michael Jordan.
Now, when you say in order to be relevant, that's interesting. What do you mean?
Yeah, I mean, like, it's hard to really talk up somebody you really didn't see play. Like, right.
Do
you see what I'm saying? Like,
so their commentary, they can't really get too much into it because they haven't seen. Right?
Chris, we're unique, me and you. We covered both guys. Like, seriously.
Right.
I was courtside when he made that shot over Craig Elo. I didn't watch YouTube, okay?
Right.
I was in Chicago every Memorial Day, Chris, during his run. You covered Michael Jordan. I covered Michael Jordan. Right. I covered LeBron James. We were at the game when he scored 26 straight points in Detroit. We were there, me and you.
We've
And
seen the best of both. Yep.
Am I right? We've seen them.
Up close. Yep.
A lot of people can't say that. So they're working in this media space now, and they don't have a real feel for Michael Jordan other than he won 6 championships and he was 6-0 in the final. That's all. That's what they have.
Right.
And that's why I think this is more prevalent and out there because of some of the people who feel like they need that in order to. I don't know.
Here's
that's
what
my
I'll
take.
say. That's a good take. Shaq is right, and when you look back at the 90s, the first thing you will notice, it will be eye-popping, is that the game was played so close to the paint. The game was virtually right around the painted area. Okay, and now it is incredibly spread out. That's the first thing you'll notice. It looks like a different game in that respect. So there's that. Secondly, the players today are, by and large, I would say more athletic. That doesn't mean, anybody necessarily is more athletic than Michael Jordan or than Dominique Wilkins or Clyde Drexler, some of the super athletes of that era. But I think more players are athletic. Again, what we describe as athleticism right now than were in the 90s, period. Okay? The ball handling is better, in part because they let you carry. You just do.
Thank you, Chris.
Right. I mean, when I grew up and I played basketball through college, you were taught to have your hand on top of the ball. At times, you obviously have it a little on the side, but you pretty much had it on top of the ball. You can't do the things with the ball when your hand's on top of it that you can do when it's on the side all the time and dart half the time under the ball. All right, so that is in part why the ball handling is so much or is better. The shooting is interesting. Obviously, what people will point to is that the young kids, the 3, they shoot so much better. They actually don't. They just shoot it more.
Right.
3-point percentage is similar to what league-wide 3-point percentage is 36.7 right now. In 2013-14, it was 36%. In 2008 and 9, it was 36.7. In 2001-02, it was 35.4. All right, 96, 97. Now, I think those might have been the years where they had the shorter line. It was 36%. But my point is, it's very close. It's hovered around 35%.
But they stand on this idea of skilled, Chris.
The skill, like I said, ball handling is different because they're carrying.
Right.
The shooting, if guys, what they figured out, and for those that don't know, some people may know this, a lot don't, Rob. And it's amazing that it did take people so long to figure this out. Because what the analytics people realized at some point was, you know what? Because, Rob, 50% shooting from the field was the standard. Like, if you do that, that's excellent. Right. Especially for a perimeter player, a guard, that's excellent. That's what you were shooting pretty good percentage if you shot 50% from 2. What the analytics people figured out was, if you shoot 33% from 3, that's the equivalent of 50% from 2. And we can shoot better than 33%. We can shoot 34, 35%.
36%.
Right. So we should just keep doing that instead of going for these 2s. And they figured that out, and that is what sparked the 3-point revolution. Obviously you got power forwards and centers even shooting 3s. But my point is the shooters back then could shoot just as well because the percentages are pretty similar. They just didn't shoot as much, didn't shoot a lot of them. And here's the ultimate thing, Rob. I believe that while I give today's players advantages in certain ways, I also think they're disadvantaged in certain ways. They're not as fundamentally sound in terms of playing team basketball. I mean 5-player basketball, not just high pick and roll, which is 2-man ball, or ISO 1-man ball. And you do what you can, and if you can't get a shot, you kick it out to a teammate. That's what today's American players are being raised in. Whereas it used to be, and this includes Michael Jordan and his generation, they were raised playing 5-man basketball, moving without the. Luka Doncic can't move without the basketball. And I don't know he's not American, but he doesn't know what to do with it unless the ball's in his hands. All right, and the players of back in the day Michael Jordan would move without the ball, set some screens. They knew how to make post-entry passes. They knew how to guard the post. They had post moves. Those are the things I'm talking about when I say the fundamentals aren't where they used to be. And so I would tell you that while the players today are more athletic, have better handles, again, carrying, but still, the teams of the 90s could play with these teams and beat them at times. I think it'd be just as good because they played 5-man basketball. Whereas today they're just playing pick and roll, 2-man. The other 3 guys spread the floor and I'll kick it to you. Or 1-man basketball. I'm going to create one-on-one and kick it to you if I can't get anything. That's easier to guard. It's easier to stop. And Rob, if you look at the teams that just say gave LeBron trouble, the Spurs, why? They played 5-man team basketball. The Warriors, why? They play 5-man team basketball. What is Denver doing now? 5-man team basketball. Denver is not the most talented team in the world.
No.
You should look, and that's the thing. You can look at Jokic, Luka, Steph, James Harden. None of them are what we call athletic today.
Yep.
By today's NBA standards. But they're skilled. And I don't mean just ball handling skill. I mean skilled. And the players in the 90s were skilled and could play with these guys. So that's kind of my breakdown of it. And the memes, Rob, I could take bad plays from LeBron. I could take bad plays from Jordan. I could take bad plays from Luka and make it look like these dudes don't know what they're doing.
But Chris,
anybody can do that.
Didn't we talk about this? We watched the video of Russell Westbrook. You remember the collection of shots and air balls?
Oh, yeah.
And that,
right.
Chris, that wasn't the 90s.
And he's one of the best players in this era time.
All
right.
time.
Right.
You remember the video we saw? And we were like, that wasn't even his lifetime of missed shots or bad shots. That was one season.
Right. Absolutely. I mean, the biggest thing is the game has changed. And it's the same thing. I'm glad you brought up the quarterbacks, Rob. The quarterbacks today, I believe it's the hardest thing to do in sports is play quarterback. But they have made it a lot easier for these guys than it used to be.
You can protect those
guys.
guys.
Get hit. Right. You ain't even get hit in certain parts of your body. You used to be able to get – everything was fair game. Your receivers can't be hit the way they used to.
Go look at Joe Montana. Go look at Phil Simms.
Right.
Those guys got crushed. Chris, they got crushed.
Right. That's why their completion percentages are lower.
Yes.
Their passer ratings are lower. Their touchdowns are lower. The interceptions are higher because it was harder. You sit in the pocket now, Rob, and you just sitting there. It's almost like you playing touch if you're a quarterback. And so you have to know these things when you talk about the eras so you don't sound ignorant, to be quite honest.